Okay, so we want to greet everyone who has joined us on YouTube today. We are doing things a bit differently now in terms of how we stream. From, I guess, next time we'll start using StreamYard, and this time we're still using Zoom while we are setting ourselves up. We want to greet everyone that has joined us on YouTube. Again, we have been blessed with, especially we've had so many presentations with Dr. Clark. So today's presentation is on mind health, how to keep our minds sharp, how to prevent Alzheimer's and similar diseases that affect the brain, and we're going to find out how we can do that with our lifestyle. So according to Ellen White, and I will quote that later in the chat box. I'll put the quote down. According to Ellen White, 90% of the diseases originate in the mind, and so that gives us an idea of how we can fix those diseases as well. So just reminding everyone that because we are live on YouTube today, all comments and questions can be typed on YouTube in the chat section, and we will also link all the relevant information of all the links, all the information that is relevant for our ministry, for Dr. Clark's ministry. And yes, please ask your questions, and there will be a little Q&A segment at the end of the presentation where you can ask your questions. So thank you very much again, and we will ask Dr. Clark to start with a word of prayer.
Let's bow our heads. Dear Father in heaven, we're thankful that we can gather here on Zoom and YouTube and think about our minds. Lord, you've given us wonderful minds, and we pray that we'll use them to the best of our ability, and we'll understand how best to keep them sharp. And we thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, is my screen showing? Good, okay.
Yes, looks good.
Keeping your mind sharp. And we'll be talking about Alzheimer. Keeping your mind sharp. We'll be talking about Alzheimer's, memory loss, cognitive decline, and dementia. And these are big issues for folks. As people face things in their lives, they realize that they want to keep their memories good. And let's see now, I'm just trying to see there we go. And move my pictures around here, sorry. There we go. All right, so we had a lady who was getting forgetful. She was getting less and less able to take care of herself. She had moved to Florida to retire, far away from her family up in Michigan. And as time went on, she lost her ability to take care of herself, and it was a big question what to do. And so the family in Michigan said, okay, we'll take Grandma and bring her home to Michigan again and take care of her there. Well, they brought her home, started feeding her food that was good, and within less than 6 months, she'd returned back to having her mind back. And see, when she went down to Florida, she sort of got lax on her health principles, and it made it so that her mind was affected. And this can happen. You start eating bad food and you are made up of what you eat, and pretty soon your brain doesn't work so good. And so a move and some good food, and she was back to where she should be. A number of factors there. She got back in with her old social groups. That makes a difference. And then the food as well. So after this presentation, you will know more about the causes and natural home remedies for Alzheimer's and dementia. And I hope that you'll be able to apply those in a way that will either sustain your brain as you have it now, or help it improve if you've lost brain function. I used to practice fairly conventionally, but now I do lifestyle medicine. And in lifestyle medicine, we try to maximize your health above the probability of disease. So if you choose a healthy lifestyle, have good habits, you can have healthy bodies and healthy brains. So what we're going to cover is who gets dementia, how your diet affects your brain, how physical and mental exercise affect your brain, and the psychosocial health that you need to avoid dementia. Well, okay. Now that we're saying this word dementia so much, what exactly is dementia? And you've heard of heart failure. This is like brain failure. And so this would include the progressive decline in brain function, loss of memory, loss of intellect, loss of rationality, not thinking straight, loss of social skills, and loss of physical functioning. And it can happen to anybody, but it's more common as you get older. In fact, as you get into 65 and older, the ratio goes up. For 65-year-olds, it's about 1 in 10. For 85-year-olds, it's about 1 in 3. So you can see the numbers rise as the age rises. Now, there's several different types of dementia, and we just want to see that we cover the most common types. Alzheimer's dementia certainly is the most common type of dementia. But then there's also vascular dementia, including multi-infarct dementia, post-stroke, TIAs, and so forth. There's frontotemporal dementia, and there's Lewy body disease. But we're going to pretty much interchangeably talk about Alzheimer's and dementia, and just be aware that we're including all dementias when we say either one of those, and that all our approaches to those would have a benefit for these different dementias. Now, who gets dementia? Well, a lot of people. I mean, in Australia, the causes of death by gender, look at coronary heart disease as number 1, but number 2 is Alzheimer's and dementia. So this is the second leading cause of death for people in Australia. And that makes it very, very serious. And third is cerebral vascular disease, which is definitely related to the brain and can be the cause of dementia and Alzheimer's. So we're looking at a huge portion here. And then after that's lung cancer and lung diseases. So beware and be forewarned, and being forewarned, you're forearmed. So if you know the second leading cause of death in your country is dementia, this would make it very important that you do everything you can to not be one of those statistics. Now, how do we figure out if somebody has dementia of an Alzheimer's type? Well, we really need a sample of their brain, which most people don't willingly give up, nor is such a procedure that safe. But here we have 2 pictures, artist conceptions of pictures of the brain, and of a microscopic picture of the brain. On the left, we have a normal brain there, where we're looking at neurons with the nucleus in the middle, and a nice clear body, and then the stroma around them, the brain structure that looks fairly structured and clean, and that's normal brain. But you go over here to this other side where it says Alzheimer's, and you notice that we have something called neurofibrillary tangles. And those neurofibrillary tangles are part of the problem. They're just junk inside the cell body. And then on top, in here inside the matrix, you have these amyloid plaques. It's really junk protein that's become oxidized, bits and pieces of protein. And if you remember from our COVID lectures, it could be COVID spike protein, but that's an aside. It's definitely a strange protein. So I guess we have to ask the question: do you have dementia? And what would be the signs of getting dementia or Alzheimer's? And well, memory loss tops the list, and it really disrupts life. It's not just that. Let me think. I'm having trouble remembering this person's name. It's like, okay, I can't remember what I was doing today, or where my front door is, or how my password for my bank account. And it challenges your planning ability and problem solving ability. You quit planning so far ahead, and you have harder time dealing with interruptions in your daily routine. Difficulty completing familiar tasks at home. Oh, was I in the middle of brushing my teeth? Where'd my toothbrush go? Or at work, or at leisure. And it's also fraught with confusion over time and place. Now, what am I doing here? How did I get here? And let's see, time's getting away from me. Trouble understanding visual images and spatial relationships. This could be like driving and that kind of thing. And new problems with words in speaking or writing. Yes. Okay, new problems with words in speaking or writing. Well, okay, I can't remember that word. I've always known that word. Misplacing things and losing the ability to retrace steps, getting lost. Decreased or poor judgment, and withdrawal from work or social activities. And then changes in mood and personality, which can be a big one. So there you go. And you have to ask yourself, how many of those am I challenged with, or am becoming more and more challenged with, and what are the chances that I'm headed toward serious mental deterioration? So what do I have here? Go nutrient dense, eat more fruit. A lot of people don't realize how nutrient dense they should be eating their food. They think about calories, or they think about other things, but they don't realize what's nutrient dense and what is not. And if you eat more fruit, then your risk of Alzheimer's goes down. Now notice the big high red bar there says high risk. If you want a high risk of Alzheimer's, don't eat fruit. But if you eat 2 to 3 pieces per day, then your risk drops by 40%. If you eat more than 3 pieces of fruit a day, your risk drops by 60%. So there you go. Eating more fruit is part of the solution. We're starting right off with solutions. Isn't that great? We're going to be talking about what the causes are as we go along here. But, think fruit and protect your brain from deterioration. Eat more fruits and vegetables from the fruit and vegetable section. You spend more time in the fresh section of your supermarket and less time in the part that isn't fresh. So give me just a minute. I think I'm having something showing up on my screen here I need to fix. There we go. I was afraid my computer was going to do something funny. Now, fruits save your brain. Which fruits? Well, berries have been studied a lot. Here I have a little thing with blueberries and strawberries. Definitely high on the list. They've been studied, both of them, and they make a difference. And you know, blueberries are a common food. Strawberries are a common food. But it's not just them. Pomegranates have been studied, both eating them, the fruit, the juice. I'm not real big on juices. You'll see as we go along here, the juice doesn't necessarily in and of itself help Alzheimer's, but the, you know, phytosterols, phytochemicals, the vitamins and minerals in this particular fruit are beneficial. Apples, and those are easy to come by. Figs. When I found out that, I'm like, okay, I'm good to go. Where's my figs? I like those. Cherries and plums, you know, stone fruit, grapefruit and bell peppers or capsicum. And then some people point out that goji berries have been studied and been helpful and found to be beneficial. And so you just have a numerous bunch of different fruits that are definitely high on the list of things you want to include in your diet, if you remember. Then you'll have better outcome. And it has to do with the fact that these fruits have lots of vitamins. Yes, nutrient dense. Here I'm putting down vitamins A, C, E. They lower your risk of dementia. If you're an omnivore eating largely of animal products, you see here that you have a standard amount of vitamin C, vitamin E, and vitamin A in those brown bars. But if you look at a vegetarian eating mostly plant-based diet, notice that you have 3 times as much vitamin C and E and 2.5 times as much vitamin A. And so there's a lot more nutrients in fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, if you are making meat a major portion of your diet, you need to be very, very careful that you are not deficient in some necessary nutrient. Remember that. Okay, now, speaking of fruits, let's go on to vegetables. And of the vegetables, some that have definitely been studied and shown to have positive benefits for brain function retention. We have cruciferous, that's like your cabbages and your cauliflowers there below, and green leafy vegetables. Notice we have there that we have leaf lettuce and spinach and so forth, kale and other good greens would be, you know, silver beet. They slow the cognitive decline and lower your risk of dementia as you get older. And so eat plenty of these good things. And of course, I like my silver beet steamed, but my lettuce and salads. Now, what about juicing? Some people say juice your way to fabulous health. Not so. According to research, people who drink juice every day have lower brain volumes and poorer memories. So I wouldn't make juice a big part of your diet. It's not going to at least keep your brain in good function. And if when we talk about juices, and we have that whole presentation on juicing, it's not real beneficial. Now, how about staples such as grains? Well, things like unrefined grains definitely preserve brain power. Beans, otherwise known as legumes, preserve brain power, and nuts and seeds. All good vegetarian, nutrient-dense foods for a healthy brain. Herbs can be helpful. And those of you who like to make a herbal tea that will give your brain a boost, there's red clover and gotcha cola. Those are very good. Red clover is high in different minerals, and it helps keep your brain from getting damaged by monosodium glutamate. We haven't even touched on that yet, have we? But monosodium glutamate's a big no-no for those who want to preserve their brain. Gotcha cola, and it's growing around probably in your, damp, shady places around your house. At least it was up in, above Townsville and Abergary area, cairns and so forth. But horsetail, otherwise known as shave grass, very good. It has silica and helps get rid of aluminum out of your body, which is a big risk for Alzheimer's. And Panax ginseng, the ginseng that's often touted as being good for other things, is also good for frontal lobe function in Alzheimer's. And then there's ginkgo biloba, helps mild to moderate Alzheimer's, dementia. Just a few there. So there's others as well, but those are ones that top the list. All right, what kind of diet are we talking about anyway? Well, I go to Genesis. We're talking about the Bible diet when we talk about fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and beans and grains. That's the diet God gave Adam and Eve at the beginning in Genesis, and so He wanted them to keep their brains sharp. Okay, number one cause of dementia. What do you suppose is the number one cause of dementia? I'm saying number one. Got any ideas? I mean, maybe you're thinking about this. What would be the number one cause of dementia? We said it's a, second leading cause of death for Australians. What would be the number one cause? Well, I'm going to say overeating, based on good research there at the bottom of the slide. Well, okay, why is that? Well, it increases your brain's inflammation, and it changes the blood flow in your body, messes with your brain, and it increases the amyloid protein going into your brain for Alzheimer's. And so don't overeat. It's just not worth it. And decreases brain blood flow and the oxygen on the brain. And your brain needs oxygen. I mean, you want dementia in 5 minutes just to hold your breath. And your brain, as the oxygen goes down in your brain, so does your thinking power. In fact, this is why all these masks for COVID were not real good, because it reduced oxygen on the brain. So if people keep doing that for a long time, you can only imagine what the result's going to be. And yeah. And so bon appetit, right? Blessed art thou, O land, when thy king is the son of nobles. And thy princes eat in due season. That means at the right time. For strength and not for drunkenness. Don't overeat. Eat the right kind of food for the job you're going to do and enjoy it. Now, Okinawans have led the way in this ability to avoid overeating. They are known for their caloric restriction. They eat 40% fewer calories than most Western countries, and they're 75% less likely to get Alzheimer's. So eating less food. I mean, that doesn't sound very popular, does it? Tell people to eat less food. They think you're trying to starve them. Well, you're just trying to help them, not starve them. And it'll be beneficial. Foods that will harm your brain. Okay, we started out with good foods. Let's talk about the foods that are not helpful. Look at these things. White bread, meat protein, fried potatoes, condiments, pickles. I mean, we're looking here at stuff that is just not going to help your brain. I mean, and I'm not making this up again. This is all from the studies. Everything we do is based on good research. And this good research tells us that, no, you want to preserve your brain. Don't feed it with these things. How about pizza with its cheese? Cheese is detrimental to just about anything in your body. And then your pepperonis and other meats that they put on pizzas are fermented. That's no good. You got baking soda in the crust of this pizza, and the baking soda is going to cause B vitamin destruction. And when you destroy B vitamins, your brain definitely suffers. Your ability to handle stress suffers, and stress leads to Alzheimer's. I mean, pizza would be great for initiating Alzheimer's. I mean, that cheese stuff melted all over the top of it might be what your brain looks like after a while after eating that stuff. I mean, you are what you eat, and you wouldn't want to be that, so why eat that? And then sugar increases the inflammation in your body. Sugar causes all kinds of problems with the brain and nervous system. It changes blood flow in your brain. It causes a decrease in oxygen in the blood. And so sugar clogs the system. And then there's ice cream with the mixing of milk and sugar. And this is definitely harmful. And well, can't I just have 1 ounce have one once in a while. I just want a little bit here and there. I mean, we've known of people who just decided that they're going to go to a birthday party or to some other party, and they ate food they shouldn't eat, and they stroked out the night after, and that definitely leads to instant dementia. No, you shouldn't depart from your strict diet ever. I mean, you could just do yourself in, and people have. It's not, a mysterious maybe. It is an absolute has happened. And so don't depart from strict integrity, even for a moment, just to indulge appetite. But I was just enjoying one little. Yep. Well, it happens. Now, here we say meat eating increases your risk of Alzheimer's threefold. 3 times as much? And why is that? Well, it definitely is high in fat, and that compromises the oxygen in your brain. It's definitely high in hormones. It's definitely got chemicals in it. It's usually very, very carcinogenic, and it lacks nutrients. I mean, it's just protein and carcinogens. But the other factor is this: it's got critters in it. What do I mean by critters? I mean, it could have prions in it, like mad cow disease. And in fact, in a study of Alzheimer's patients who had autopsies done, they found out that 13% of them had mad cow disease, or otherwise known by human beings as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. And that's not a good way to die. Mad human disease is what it is. But clinically, they're indistinguishable, pretty much. I mean, you could have mad cow disease and it would look like Alzheimer's, or Alzheimer's and looks like mad cow disease. So, right, eating meat leads to mad cow disease. Well, that's scary. Yeah. Remember in England when they had all those mad cows and they put them to death, and then they figured out they hadn't destroyed the thing. They just couldn't destroy it. This mad cow disease prion was practically indestructible. Well, now another thing that will do this. Remember we said ice cream is a problem. Well, why? Oxidized cholesterol. See, when they make the ice cream, they whip it full of air, and when they whip it full of air, then they freeze it very suddenly using very cold things like liquid nitrogen or liquid oxygen, or other deep freezing techniques, and they end up trapping the air with the cholesterol in the product. So the whole time the product is on the shelf, it is oxidizing the cholesterol in the milk, and so you end up with high levels of oxidized cholesterol, and you eat that, and within 24 hours of eating ice cream, you get lesions in your blood vessels that lead to cerebral vascular disease and Alzheimer's. And so you want to avoid the ice cream. And when you mix milk and sugar, it raises your cholesterol for a much longer period of time than just eating something that has cholesterol in it. It raises your cholesterol for a full 24 hours, and it's oxidized cholesterol. So this is a bad deal. Now, snacking. Don't eat between meals. The pleasure of doing so will eventually be forgotten by very unretentive memory. Yes. And so you're giving times to eat. Here I have a picture of people eating with a big clock behind them. And the more you can stick with a schedule, the more your brain is happy. If you maintain a regular meal schedule of 2 or 3 meals per day with no snacking between, it has an anti-aging effect on your brain. And that's what you need, anti-aging. We don't want to age our brains. Healthy bacteria in your gut improve memory and inhibit the development of Alzheimer's disease. How do you get healthy bacteria in your gut? Well, it's like you feed them. If you want bad bacteria, you put down food that bad bacteria like. If you want good bacteria, you put down food that good bacteria like. So good bacteria, bad bacteria, you take your pick. And whatever you feed, those will be the ones that will take over. And so if you feed your bacteria with good fresh fruits and vegetables, there might be a war in your gut if you're used to feeding bad bacteria with things like hamburgers and meat products. But once the war is over, which might take anywhere from 2 weeks to 6 months, then your stomach and intestines will be inhabited with bacteria that actually improve your brain function. Yes, the brain-gut connection. There it is. And the way you make the connection. Well, what about probiotics? I know we've talked about probiotics on here before, but if you send down a probiotic that you are not sustaining with good food, it'll just die out there. It'll starve to death, and then you'll be back to the old bacteria. Really, the key is eating good food, not just trying to change the bacteria by dumping new hordes of bacteria in there. Now, combinations make a difference. You don't want too complex of a diet. You want a simple diet that doesn't mix too many varieties, especially fruits and vegetables. You don't want to mix them at the same meal. What's a fruit? Well, something with a seed. So does that mean that a capsicum is a fruit? Yeah. A tomato? Yeah. A cucumber? Yes. An avocado? That's a fruit. Oh, well, wow, okay. Oh, how about a pumpkin or a squash? Oh, yeah, well, that's a fruit too. It's got seeds. Really? How about a cherry? Well, that's a fruit. A banana's a fruit. A pineapple's a fruit. Well, what's a vegetable then? Well, it's something that is the root. Like, what's an example of a root? Well, a carrot, a radish, oh, or something that is the stem. What's an example of a stem we eat? Well, like asparagus or celery. Or it is the leaf. What's an example of a leaf? Well, like spinach or silver beet or kale or lettuce. And then what about flowers? Well, flowers would be also part of the vegetable, and that would be like cauliflower, broccoli, hibiscus. It would be like artichokes. Those are all the vegetables. So don't mix those at the same meal, at least if you want to avoid mental fogginess and eventual Alzheimer's. See, it's a different digestive process that the different things need, and also they are also populated with different probiotic bacteria which don't get along. Monosodium glutamate. We have to talk about monosodium glutamate, and notice we have Vegemite, Promite, Marmite, liquid aminos, soy sauce. These things are all loaded with MSG, monosodium glutamate, free glutamate that's going to be a false neurotransmitter. It's called a neurotoxin and cytotoxin. It is something that leads to brain deterioration. And so a lot of people feeding on MSG and don't realize it and should realize it. And there's all kinds of things with MSG. Anything that has vinegar will have MSG. Anything that's fermented will have MSG. Soy protein isolate, a lot of your soy products will have it because they processed it so much. Soy in and of itself is 20% glutamate. And if you then isolate the glutamate by high processing, like in liquid aminos or soy sauce, then you're 20% MSG. Avoid caffeine brain. What's caffeine brain? Caffeine decreases mental performance. It doesn't improve alertness. It merely returns the addicts to their baseline that they had before they ever had any of this stuff to begin with. Avoid caffeine brain for sure. And it disturbs sleep, and sleep's very necessary for keeping your brain in good shape. And it reduces the protective hormone melatonin. That's scary. That's very scary. Melatonin is there sort of like water in your car radiator to keep the engine cool. And if you run out of melatonin, then your mitochondria overheat and you're in trouble. Oh, yes. Caffeine, you weren't made to run on caffeine. Alcohol causes loss of important neurons and increases Alzheimer's changes in the brain, like amyloid, increases amyloid, neurofibrillary tangles. In Alzheimer's disease, you have all kinds of problems with neurofibrillary tangles, and that's what drinking alcohol will do for you. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it's not for kings to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink. Why? Lest they drink and forget the law. There we go. And pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. If you are drinking, you will be forgetting. If you are forgetting, that's the hallmark of Alzheimer's. There you go. Well, and just think of all the modern chemicals. Oh, better living through chemistry. Yes, when I used to work in the operating room operating on people, I had an anesthetist who had a wry sense of humor, and he'd put somebody to sleep, and then he would, like he had just won a victory, he'd go, "Wow, better living through chemistry." We'd all look at him like, oh, okay, there he goes again. Anyway, chemicals threaten the brain. Herbicides. What's an example of a herbicide that will give you Alzheimer's? Well, glyphosate. What's glyphosate? Roundup. Pesticides. What's an example of a pesticide that causes neurodegeneration? Well, a common pesticide is your pyrethrins. Those affect your brain. Pyrethrins are in most of your spider sprays and your cockroach sprays, all these sprays you spray around the house so diligently to keep the bugs down, and pretty soon it'll be keeping you down too. Formaldehyde. What's an example of formaldehyde? Well, it's in carpets and draperies and insulation boards. Then there's arsenic, which is, well, where do you get arsenic? Well, it's often in bottled water. It's in chicken and in eggs because they use it as a dewormer. Aluminum. Oh boy, aluminum. Yeah, where does aluminum often? Well, how about in cheese? Cheese is the #1 source. Baking sodas, vaccinations, cooking utensils or cooking pans, cookware. Fluoride in toothpaste and drinking water, and mercury in dental fillings and in fish, and in high fructose corn syrup, and bromide in fire retardants, and in baked goods, even breads as a dough conditioner, medications from your pharmacy, and anesthetics. Yeah, we have a friend that decided it was more important to get something operated on than to keep his brain, and he went in for an operation, came out a few years behind on his Alzheimer's recovery. Tobacco, smoking, yes, oh boy, a lot of problems with tobacco. Now, putting it in perspective, let's put it in perspective. What do you think, if you went to the supermarket, what food do you think would have the most pesticides? Well, let's start with herbicides. What food, and you might be thinking, oh, broccoli or strawberries or apples. No, beef. Beef is the most dangerous food for herbicide contamination and ranks 3rd in insecticide contamination. Wow. Well, I mean, how many pounds of corn does it take to grow a pound of meat? Or how many kilograms of corn does it take to make a kilo of meat? 16 kilos of corn for 1 kilo of meat. That means you got 16 times the concentration of whatever was in the corn, the glyphosate or the pyrethrins or whatever they put on there, the 7 or other dangerous chemicals. So beware that the animal kingdom, the animal products are more concentrated in these pesticides than are any vegetable things you'd buy at the store. And there's ways of decontaminating foods, especially vegetables. You can get vegetable washes, and there's these ways of soaking them and so forth, and peeling it if it's on the skin. Now, another thing that'll increase your Alzheimer's is exposure to mold, water-damaged buildings. And sometimes the mold's in your food, like peanut butter is a product that often has mold in it because of the way they're grown. A lot of foods can have mold in them. All your different fermented foods. And we've talked about in that other talks, but top fermented foods are vinegar, alcohol, cheese, but then you get into the ones people don't realize: coffee, chocolate, brown rice syrup, vanilla, all are fermented foods. All would have mold stuff. How about people who are hypersexual yeah, masturbation, and well, it depletes the essential mineral zinc, and people end up with dementia. They end up with Alzheimer's. Here's a famous guy, wrote a famous book, supposedly a Christian counselor, and told everybody that in order to make sure they weren't angry with their spouse at night, the way to check that out was to make sure you had intimate relations every night. And yes, later he was in the nursing home as an Alzheimer's patient. All right. Dementia risk increases with either lack of sleep or with too much sleep. Notice the first column is too short a sleep, less than 7.5 hours. And the next column is too long sleep, more than 9 hours. And then the next column is if you took a sleeping pill to try to get to sleep, it increased your risk of Alzheimer's. So what you want is regularity in bedtime, and you want to have regularity in sleep time. So 9 to 5 would be a very good bedtime for those who want to retain cognitive function. And on the other hand, staying up late at night with all the lights, it definitely decreases your melatonin. It definitely increases your risk of Alzheimer's. A late bedtime after 9:30, irregular eating and sleeping schedule, such as in shift work, artificial lighting after sundown, night lights, illuminated clocks, blue light, such as would be coming from your TV, your computer, your smartphone, your iPad, your e-reader. These all definitely affect your melatonin. And sometime maybe we'll have to do a talk on melatonin, or have my wife do a talk on melatonin. But melatonin is very important for you. Every hour per day spent in media entertainment increases your risk of Alzheimer's by 30%. And notice I put this in follow-up to the blue light, but there's also the stress related to this. There's also the lack of mental stimulation related to this. There's the hypnotic effects of these media devices. And so television, movies, YouTube, video games, computer time, all these tend to trap your brain, decrease its function, put you in a box. Not good. And then there's electromagnetic fields, putting a cell phone to your head, living in an environment with Wi-Fi, smart meters, cell towers, radio frequency generators, all these things. Cars that are high in EMF, right? We've been through a lot with this. We bought an EMF meter. We discovered that my wife fell asleep in the car all the time, even driving. And it was because the car was high EMF. So we got a low EMF car and fixed that problem quite readily. Yeah, she used to fall asleep in church because they turned on all the electronic microphones, the wireless microphones. They'd turn them off when the last song was sung, and she'd wake up, wonder, why do I sleep for church? Am I, losing my spiritual experience? No, it was the EMF. And so EMF affects your brain. It increases your risk of Alzheimer's. I'm not making this up. This is all in the studies, as you can see there from the notation at the bottom of the slide. This is bona fide, studies showing people get more Alzheimer's when they get exposed to electromagnetic fields. And this is research done 25 years ago, or starting, back 25 years ago. Physical activity helps prevent Alzheimer's changes in your brain. This is good. And the best times to exercise are before breakfast or after meals. Take a walk in the morning, take a walk after meals, get your, digestive walk in. This helps your brain. It's very beneficial. And walking is the best exercise because for the amount of activity you're doing, it retains or accumulates the highest oxygen levels compared to, say, running. If you're running, then you tend to lower the oxygen. That's why you breathe hard. Not that that's bad, but for Alzheimer's, walking has that particular benefit of a higher oxygen. Improves brain function, increases memory. It's been shown to do this, and reduces the risk of dementia. So walk for health, walk with somebody, and that's beneficial. Any outdoor activity is going to be better than indoor activity. A healthy lifestyle with daily outdoor activity reduces your risk of dementia. Countries with lower average sunlight have higher Alzheimer's death rates due to lower, melatonin and lower antioxidants and lower vitamin D levels. Outdoor air improves mental performance because there's negative ions. See this couple's beside a small lake or pond, and that would have more negative ions in the air. That would be very beneficial. Combined physical and mental exercise, such as gardening, improves your results with your brain. So you have to think what to do. Okay, what do I do next? Well, I better go around and do this and do that, and now let me get active at it. And it's interval training. Good hydration improves your memory. I mean, if you have your brain all dried out, you think it's going to work? And intelligence, reducing your risk of dementia. So yeah, keep your brain from drying out. Start the day off with a liter of water, and men need 3.7 liters per day, and women need 2.7 liters per day, according to the research. And you can also use water for hydrotherapy to prevent or treat dementia. And so a cool morning sponge bath stimulates your nerves. Hot and cold showers invigorate your brain circulation. And we also have people do hot and cold treatments to their heads. So the way it works is we have them start out with a hot pack over the front of the brain and a cold pack over the back of the brain, up here in the bottom, the top of the neck, up toward the occiput in the back. And you leave that there for 3 minutes, hot in front, cold in back, and then you switch them in 3 minutes. Cold in front and hot in back. And every 3 minutes you switch and switch and switch and switch. And this changes the blood flow back and forth in your brain and improves brain function and helps the brain keep from having areas that aren't well perfused, because if you do a SPECT scan on people as they get older, we find areas of the brain not being used as much as they should be. Well, this sort of gives you a jump start while you start thinking of ways of using your brain better. And so speaking of using your brain better, use it or lose it. The more you use your brain, the better you are. And here we have mental activity. People with low mental activity in the red there have a higher risk of dementia. People with high mental activity, either a lifetime of keeping their brain active through what they think about or how they engage in processes of mental tasks, or by reading, discussing things, studying, word games, trivia games, anything to keep the brain active will help reduce dementia. And part of it is the fact that as you learn new things or keep active, your brain will be growing new brain networks that bypass damaged areas in your brains. And we have a whole talk on how your brain recovers neuroplasticity, and how to recover from brain damage. Now, really, you want to just have a lifelong plan of learning, and this prevents dementia. Bible study is the best mind builder, comparing text with text. Here a little, there a little. Thinking of rest. Here we are in the seventh day, the Sabbath day, and you think, okay, rest. Well, what else in the Bible talks about rest? Well, come unto me, all ye that are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Well, there's another rest. And in Revelation it says the people of God rest from their labors in Revelation 14, but it says the wicked have no rest day or night who worship the beast in his image. Well, there's another rest. And then it says in Hebrews, there remaineth a rest to the people of God. So you're thinking about everywhere, your comparison, your association cortex is going back and forth. You're comparing the different places in the Bible where this rest occurs, and you're seeking to enter into that rest. And this is part of building the brain. Memory exercises pay off. Using memory tricks to remember things, object lessons, blackboards, maps, figures, symbols, mnemonics, which is memory tricks, and pictures. And when you do these things, anything to improve your memory, even if it seems to be a gimmick, is beneficial in the long run for maintaining brain function. So I was putting this talk together, and I thought, I've talked to people, given people counsel on maintaining brain function. What can I do to, make sure that what I'm telling people actually works? So I called up one of these patients. I looked him up in my records and said, okay, it had been 2 years since I talked to them. The husband was getting dementia. The wife was worried. And so I talked to them. I said, hey, remember me? Yeah, oh yeah. Um, I said, how's Eddie doing? And they said, oh, he's been doing great. After you gave him the counsel, he's been following it. And as long as he stays on his good diet, his brain does very well. He has showing no signs of dementia at this point. Whereas before, he was forgetting and not remembering and not worried about it. So another thing that affects your brain is stress. I mean, maybe we should have put that at the top because, as you read at the beginning, Sophie, 9/10 of disease originates in the brain from stress, whether it's fear, worry, depression, guilt, family issues. And so psychological stress predicts the progression to dementia. Stress is really about your emotions, right? It's an emotional response to environmental stimuli. And so if it's about your emotions, what you need is good emotional health. And a good example of good emotional health would be the fruits of the Spirit in Galatians 5. But the fruit of the Spirit is love. Well, that's a good emotion. Joy. Well, that's another good one. Peace. Patience. Kindness. Goodness. Faithfulness. Gentleness. And self-control. All very good emotions that we can, cultivate and improve on and help with emotional health and decrease the risk of Alzheimer's. Happiness improves your memory. And so a merry heart doth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. So make friends also is important. Having 5 to 6 close friends decreases your risk of cognitive decline by 250%. Notice our graph here, people with many friends, their cognitive ability improved a little bit. That line goes up slightly. Whereas those with few friends, those isolated people who don't have many friends, their brain brain function, their cognitive abilities showed a loss over time. And so this is an important concept because social health. You need to practice social health. And how can we practice social health? Well, how about the one another text? Love one another. Yeah, there you go. Good emotions, good habits. Accept one another. Pray for one another. Honor one another. That's about, honoring people, sort of like being grateful for them. We have a whole talk on gratitude that sometime we'll pursue. Encourage one another and carry one another's burdens. And then there's a serve one another. I mean, this is just a small sample of all the one another text, but they may all make good sense. They all help your brain. They all make it so that you live happier longer and remember it. Now, selfishness is a problem, but selflessness in volunteering has been shown to preserve your intellectual capacity. People who volunteer. Volunteers had 78% less intellectual decline over a 1-year period compared to non-volunteers in a very big study. And this was over in Japan. So volunteering, helping others, being involved. And so just like our grandma that moved from Florida to Michigan and got back on good diet lifestyle, you can have an improvement in your brain function by good lifestyle habits, good social connections, and good food. In summary, healthy eating nurtures a healthier brain. Physical and mental exercise promote a vigorous brain. Psychosocial health supports an active brain. So our recommendations: eat fresh fruit and vegetables, whole grains, legumes, beans, nuts and seeds, and don't overeat. Limit or avoid animal products, fatty foods, fermented foods, processed foods, and chemicalized foods. Eat only at scheduled times and eat very little, if any, in the evening. Take time daily for vigorous exercise in the great outdoors, in the fresh air, sunshine, as natural environment as possible. Have a useful, purposeful labor as your best source of exercise. Drink plenty of fresh, pure water. Avoid heavy metals, chemicals, pesticides, MSG, and herbicides. Keep your mind active and challenged every day. Make friends and build social networks. Take steps to manage stress effectively. Take advantage of the help God can give you in living to the fullest, free from stress and worry, and study His Word. There you go. Those are our recommendations. And our website is Northern Lights Health Education, where if you look there, if you look under our presentation handouts over here on the side, you'll find out down toward the bottom there is a handout on keeping your mind sharp. All right. I'm going to go back to Zoom.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Dr. Clark. I mean, I always get excited about mental health because it's just amazing how many diseases can be prevented just by looking after our brain. And you know, good diet, good lifestyle feeds the brain, and then good attitude and good brain health also feeds the body, I guess, if we can say it that way.
Yes, no, that's for sure.
Yeah, so you know, I think we're all very grateful for the information. Um, it's just amazing, especially when we think about overeating. You mentioned Dr. Clark, the Bible verse where it says, "Blessed are you, O land, when your king is the son of nobles, and your princes feast at the proper time for strength and not for drunkenness." And this is interesting because when we say drunkenness, we more think about the drinking side of things. But we had a presentation with Barbara O'Neill the other day, and she mentioned something. Can you please comment on that? She said something when we eat like in the wrong combinations or the wrong type of food, it can ferment in the stomach, and that can affect the brain as well because it produces alcohol. So just because we stay away from alcohol, it doesn't mean, I guess, that by eating at improper times or the wrong food combinations or overeating, is that right? Like it can still create alcohol in our stomach?
Yes, it certainly can, and it can also create vinegar. And common mixtures that can do this are like mixing fruits and vegetables. And the reason for that is fruit digests very quick, but the vegetables are very slow to digest. And so while the fruit is over digested or rotting, the vegetables are still trying to get digested. And so that would increase both alcohol and vinegar. And studies show that if you test the intestines of somebody who's had such a combination, they will have vinegar going down their intestines, and that will cause all kinds of problems. So for your gut-brain axis, you're going to tip that toward dementia.
Wow. Yeah, it is amazing. So just because we don't drink alcohol, we don't use vinegar, doesn't mean that, you know, the wrong food combinations can't do the same thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so I guess that's something to think about. I find it interesting as well to think about the food feeding the brain or the brain spirituality. Sorry, the diet, the connection of the diet to spirituality as well, because, I feel like you talked about, sometimes, as a treat, having that, piece of cake or whatever. And I look at it in a way that even sometimes we can't afford to hinder our chances to witness, if that means that the food we eat is going to cloud our brain and not allow us to witness as well, then we can't afford that. Is that right?
Definitely, that's a good point, because you need your brain to witness, and if you're eating these foods that are detrimental to your health, you're going to suffer mentally as well as physically. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we're told that many church trials are caused by gluttony or bad appetite, bad food choices. Church trials, as in people fighting at a board meeting or squabbling in
Mm-hmm.
church, having ill feelings toward one another.
True. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So because we're about to travel soon, and I know that my family is asking me if I am in Armenia whether I will eat meat because they've got clean meat. They don't have the same hormones and whatever, and that's how I try to explain as well that if that means that I will have the wrong combinations and I can't be the Christian that I need to be, then it's a better idea to stay away from even the organic, the so-called organic meat.
Right, and we did the talk last time, I guess it was, or time before, on how meat eating affects your spirituality. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that would have been meat from eras where they didn't use hormones. Of course, the children of Israel wouldn't have had meat with artificial hormones. I mean, meat is high in hormones, whether or not you put them there with a chemical. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, the lusting after the flesh pots of Egypt, which was yeah, a huge problem.
Yeah. So that was the talk on the progressive diet and dishes that ruin your spiritual experience. So anyone that hasn't watched that, it was really good. So yeah, we encourage everyone to type their questions. Dr. Clark, do we have a bit of time, 25 minutes or something like that? Or
Yeah, that's for sure. 25 minutes.
okay. Yeah, so we do have some questions. And what I wanted to touch on as well, Dr. Clark, you mentioned about forgetting simple words and forgetting simple things being a sign of dementia or Alzheimer's. What if, and then you touched about stress as well, because I have those types of experiences when I am stressed out or overworked, especially emotionally and mentally, that I'll go to the kitchen and forget why I went there, or like forget simple words or stumble over my words. Can it be like directly related to stress?
Yes, definitely. Stress is a cause of dementia, cause of Alzheimer's, and cause of memory loss like that. And we get a stressful event. It changes blood flow in the brain. It raises the cortisol. It makes it so our memories aren't so good. And over time, if we keep having those experiences, they become more and more permanent, and they end up in dementia. What
Wow.
happens with the cortisol is it actually washes neurons out of our hippocampus. The neurons get replaced because our brain has neuroplasticity, but the replaced neurons are baby neurons. They don't have a memory of what went before, and so they lack, the memories we need.
Yeah, amazing. I'm very interested in the stress response, like our stress response, maybe sometime, whether that's the gratitude talk or the neuroplasticity talk. I think the neuroplasticity talk was Julie's talk. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, so if we can ask her to maybe cover that either next time or whenever is convenient for her, I think a lot of us would be really grateful for that.
Yes, let me just take a minute here and look at, so today is the 7th. Yep. So when we come to the 28th, we'll have to take a miss on it because we're going to be out of town. But 14th and 21st, we are here. So also,
Okay.
you can't do that talk for us.
Yeah, so if we can do the 14th maybe because I'm away on a medical missionary training weekend on the 21st. So I'm not
Okay.
sure if the 14th is going to be a good time.
Yep, that'll be good. That'll be good. She can do it the
Okay,
14th.
awesome. I'm very excited about that one. And okay, so we've got I'll just go onto YouTube to cover some of the questions. I also found obviously the horsetail being good for the brain because it's a blood tonic, isn't it? I knew that horsetail is good for purifying the blood, but I guess it makes sense that it will be good for the brain as well.
Yes, it's a good for a lot of things. Good for osteoporosis and good for bone healing, and but it's good for the brain in that it's high in silica, and the silica competes with aluminum. So you don't call it aluminum, you call it aluminium.
Aluminium.
Aluminium. It kicks the aluminium out of your body. And so that's why it's a blood purifier of aluminium.
Wow, that's wonderful. And if anyone is worried about their skin, silica is also good for the skin and nails and hair. Is that right?
Yes, definitely. The silica helps those structures. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, wonderful. So let's go onto YouTube and address some of the questions that might be coming in. Okay, so our first question on YouTube is please comment on the impact of technology on brain health through the constant.
Let's see, you cut out there a minute. Could you repeat that
Oh,
question?
okay, sorry. So the question was, can you, Dr. Clark, please comment on the impact of technology on brain health through the constant dopamine hit?
Through the constant what?
Dopamine hit.
Oh, yes, yes, for sure. No, this is really stress is both positive and negative. In positive or negative, I mean you might think of stress as negative in that you're afraid something's going to happen to your children, or you're afraid you're
Mhm.
going to be financially destitute or whatever. But it's also stress happens when you like win a lottery or you change to a new job even though the job's better. These are major stressful life events. And
Mhm.
so anything that is upping your pleasure center can also be a stressor. And so when people get on their devices, we call it digital heroin, because as they get on their devices, they end up feeling this dopamine surge. But it is a stressor, and it does tend to function the same way as what we think of as negative stress. And so people on their devices end up with this problem. But the other thing is the devices have a huge hit to your melatonin because they're blue light and they're very high levels of blue light. So the difference between using an e-reader, which would be like an iPad or a Kindle or some other electronic device to read a book versus reading a book that's paper, the amount of of light going in your eyes from the computer or the e-reader are like 20 times more light going into your eyes. And it affects your circadian rhythms. It affects your antioxidants. It affects your brain. And then there's the whole factor that, believe it or not, these things have a wavelength to them, as in a refresh rate. And sometimes you can tell if you run your eyes back and forth real fast, you sort of see the frames of the device. Or if you try to take a video of your device, you'll see lines going up and down because the refresh rates aren't matching. And this has a hypnotical effect on your brain. It has a effect to shut down good brain function. And then there's the electromagnetic field properties of the devices. Women who work on computers have more breast cancer. It's just the effect of the EMF, the electromagnetic field. And so all these things definitely are part of the increase in Alzheimer's from modern technology, both from the stimulation of dopamine, but also the other effects. So we're definitely looking at something that in modern times is not helping our brain health.
Wow. It's a bit scary because a lot of it is on our phones. Like I'm on Kindle and I've got ebooks that I read, and it's tempting because they are cheaper on Kindle than if you got the paperback. But recently I've actually started buying the books as they are, because just for the simple reason that something goes wrong with your phone, those books could be, I don't know, gone, or maybe you don't want to know, you don't want them to know, like, what books you're buying.
Yeah, over in China with all this um, electronic surveillance and social credit and profiling certain religions, they were stopping people, and if on their phones they had some app that showed when to pray toward Mecca or something, they were putting them in re-education camps, and it was all based on what was on their phones.
Wow. That is amazing. Yeah. And can you, Dr. Clark, you talked about, I guess, the electronics having that effect, the dopamine hit on the brain. We know that Ellen White talks about coffee and caffeine, how when we use caffeine, it actually, instead of giving us energy, it we borrow energy from the future. So can we, I guess, think of the same way about electronics? Because I've noticed that when I watch something at night, it gives me this sense of maybe relaxed, happy feeling. But then in the morning, I feel very tired and like I haven't slept properly. So does that do the same thing, as in like borrow energy from the future, maybe?
Yes, that's a very interesting concept that people don't realize. They drink their caffeine, they feel instant changes, but they didn't eat anything with any kind of nutrition or calories. So yeah, you had to steal it from somewhere and you have to pay it back. And so anytime you are feeling more euphoria or excitement or stimulation than usual, you're going to have to pay for it some other time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, okay, so the next question is blackstrap molasses good for the brain? I understand that it is high in B vitamins.
Huh, that's interesting. I hadn't ever thought of molasses as being high in B vitamins. But I tell you what, sugar destroys your B vitamins, so it's got the antidote too, or at least the the opposite as well. So when you live up there in sugarcane country. We were up in sugarcane country for a while up north, and I got to watch the whole process. And so the sugarcane grew and it was nice and green. And then it grew, to maybe 2 meters tall and 3 meters tall. And then it started to get black mold on the stems of it. And then every day, the plantation owner would go out and spray his sugar cane. I mean, that's what he did every day. Every day he loaded up his tractor with sprays and went out to some other part of the plantation to spray. And then they cut it all and put it into little railroad cars and sent it to the factory. And they process it and they concentrate it. And the concentrated stuff that's left over is the molasses. Well, what do you think the molasses has in it? Well, black mold and all those chemicals that guy went out and sprayed every day. And whatever else, didn't turn into white sugar ends up being in that molasses. And so I'm thinking, wow, okay, this molasses is not a great idea. And so I wouldn't use molasses. I don't think it's a good idea at all. And your body really doesn't take minerals on from that concentrated sources of minerals. It usually takes on minerals from foods that have minerals in them by the way they were grown on good soils.
Mm-hmm.
So high mineral foods will give you minerals versus a supplement such as molasses.
Yeah, interesting. Did you mention, Dr. Clark, about the minerals in that form should go on the plant instead of in your body?
Yes, so we buy rock dust, which is readily available there in Australia. We bought it when we were there too, and we put rock dust on our gardens, and then we expect that to get incorporated into the fruits and vegetables, and then we get our minerals that way. Where the mineral is tied to a plant phytochemical, oftentimes like for grains, it's usually in the bran or the coating of the grain. In the fruits and vegetables, it's often in the skins, and then we get our nutrients that way.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. In the whole plant, in the whole fruit or vegetable, I guess God has created in a way that, yeah, they bind to certain nutrients or particles, then we digest it that way.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so the next question is, besides lifestyle, wrong foods, can prescribed medications cause dementia or contribute to it?
Absolutely. It's a big cause of it, and we did mention it there that medications were part of the problem. And if you look at the side effects of the medication, a lot of them will actually declare that they are going to cause you neurodegeneration, or your brain will not function well on them. Some of them, they won't allow you to drive if you're on the medications. That's a problem. And some of them have hidden problems for the brain that they don't realize what's happening. And so I before I knew so much about the dangers of drugs, I got an infection and got put on an antibiotic, and I found myself quite disturbed when I was on the antibiotic. I'm like, why am I feeling so like angry or frustrated? And as long as I took the antibiotic, I felt angry and frustrated. And so, the effect on the brain can be dramatic.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I guess what I was thinking about as well, Dr. Clark, is that usually when your mental function is compromised, you feel the need to change less. So, how could we help people that obviously it has happened to me in the past where I talked to someone about how general anesthetic can actually impair the brain function. It can affect the memory. And the person has said, no, I've had like a few surgeries and that was done under general anesthetic and I'm fine. And that, the person that thinks they are fine, usually the person that has memory issues, they don't think that there is something wrong with it. It's the people around them that know that things are not the way they should be. So how can we perhaps help someone that might not feel the need to change?
Yeah, no, this is yeah, it's oh yeah. So it's like you know, trying to convince somebody that's lost brain power that they've lost brain power. It's yeah, you're just having a bad day. No, I'm not. um yeah, it's like arguing with somebody over mixing fruits and vegetables, because you mix fruits and vegetables, you lose brain power, and then you're arguing from a disadvantage. Yet people argue to
Mhm.
mix their fruits and vegetables, or it doesn't apply to mixing tomatoes with lettuce, or it doesn't apply to mixing avocados with broccoli, or it doesn't apply to, and they argue and they argue, and yet because they've chosen to compromise their brain with that choice, that it's affecting their reasoning ability. And so, yeah, it's definitely a good point.
Yeah. Well, I try to, I guess one thing, if they are a Christian, I try to encourage them to memorize Bible verses. And I just hope that at least that will work, because that's not something that I guess many people can argue against, that it's not a good idea to memorize Bible verses. So that I remember on 3ABN you had a talk, Dr. Clark, on that, how that helps if you memorize Bible verses, yeah?
Yes, definitely. Memorizing the Bible, studying the Bible is very helpful to the memory. And just thinking back to your question there about the anesthetics, my mom, when she was young, had an anesthetic for appendicitis, and she found she started forgetting to pray before eating
Wow.
for quite a while. And definitely the studies show that having been under a general anesthetic increases the likelihood of dementia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. So the other question, the introverted people. So obviously we are created as social beings, Dr. Clark, as you were implying. And having friends, I guess socializing will help with our outlook on life and the brain function. So even if we are introverted, I guess I have a friend that she told me herself that even if she feels anxious, even if she doesn't want to socialize, she feels that the brain health is compromised. So, what can we do if we are, let's say, introverted and we don't want to get out and socialize in that case? Like, can that still affect our brain health, even if that's how we seem to be wired?
Reminds me of the quote that Jesus walked among men as one who desired their good. The thing you can do is go out and volunteer in a position where you have lots of interaction with people and where you're helping them, and that often develops friendships and it gives you meaning and purpose and usefulness. And that would probably be the best way, other than just going to a party and trying to strike up a conversation.
That's true. Because to think that someone might be antisocial or whatever, like, prevents us from wanting to be sociable or helping people, that's not normal, is it? We can't just say that, well, this is the kind of person I am. There's always work for a Christian. There's no such a thing as this doesn't help.
Yes, that's right. And some of it can have to do with the way a person was brought up, or it can have to do with the experiences they've had. And
Mhm.
part of that is working through those experiences, and that part of their being raised up, and just dealing with it in a way that doesn't make it harmful or damaging to you.
Mm-hmm. And to just, I guess, close the discussion off with, I found it again very interesting about what you mentioned about just doing good to others and being helpful. There is a big push in society today towards selfishness, look after yourself, do what makes you happy, and that doesn't really bring happiness. Like, I think there's a big problem these days because there is a big push for selfishness, and that's contrary to the Bible, as you mentioned. So I found that very interesting as well.
Right. Ultimately, selfishness is really stressful. And when we do our gratitude talk, we'll be talking about the fact that gratitude helps reduce selfishness.
Mm. That is very interesting. I'm really looking forward to that because it seems like we are told if we do what makes us happy, if we look after ourselves and not worry about other people, then we're going to be happy. But it seems to be just a bottomless pit, essentially, that it's just never, our heart is just never satisfied if that's what we want to do. Or, yeah.
That would be the whole subject of the book of Ecclesiastes, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's amazing. Just read the Bible and do what God says, and you'll be happy because He created us and gave us the manual how to look after our bodies and our mind. Okay, so we can close the discussion with these questions. We are nearing the end of our time, and we're really looking forward to next time as well, where then we will discuss the neuroplasticity, and I have watched it myself, and really looking forward to that.
Wonderful. Very good.
Yeah, so can we please ask you, Dr. Clark, to close with a word of prayer?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Dear Father in heaven, we're thankful for your love for us. We know you've given us good brains. We pray, Lord, that we'll preserve them through good health habits and mental practices. Pray, Lord, that we'll value your word and study it to be approved, and that we'll rightly divide the word of truth. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Dr. Clark. You have a wonderful Sabbath day and a great weekend. And we're looking forward to seeing Julie next Sabbath.
Thank you very much. And I guess I'll wish you a good evening and
Yeah. Thank you.
see you next week. All right.
Yeah. See you then. God bless.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bye. So thank you, everyone. Thank you very much for joining this evening. We really appreciate your contribution as well. Please don't forget, share the content, subscribe to our channel. And time is short. We need to share the good information. We can't afford anything to stop us and stand between our salvation and ourselves, whether that's food or medication or anything that hinders the function of the brain. So please support our ministry by subscribing and sharing, and then for donations you have all the information as well for our ministry and Dr. Clark. So we are looking forward to next Saturday evening again, and most likely this time we will have this presentation on StreamYard, and going forward that is how we will have these presentations. So thank you so much, God bless you, and looking forward to seeing you all next Saturday evening.